the great Barack Obama, the hero of the left, the hero of the Democratic Party, the man who gets up and speaks, it's, oh my God, Black Jesus is in the house today, right? He goes and campaigns, and this is the worst loss of his career, my opinion. This is what I think. Worst loss of his, I think the worst night of his life was November 5th, November 6th, midnight. Worst day of his career. Horrible. You're seeing right now speculation with him, Jennifer Aniston. His wife wasn't at the Jimmy Carter, funeral.
Curiosity about the case, and now Donald J. Trump is asking his Department of Justice to show full transparency, and somehow that's a criticism of Donald J. Trump and not Barack Obama and George W. Bush. If you want to criticize the people who aren't showing full transparency, you ought to go after the administrations that went easy on Jeffrey Epstein, the administrations...
The story of a leader who promised the moon but left behind little more than shadows has become one of the biggest political illusions of our time. Crafted with soaring speeches and media adoration, the image looked unshakable until reality caught up. And that's where Patrick Bet-David and JD Vance come in, tearing down the glossy exterior to expose Barack Obama not as the flawless visionary he sold himself to be, but as the master of branding over substance.
Think you're Obama, okay? First go from the Obama's lens.
Okay.
Obamas are sitting there having to hear people compare Kamala to Obama.
Crazy.
Do you know what that does to Obama? Do you know Obama is sitting there saying, shut the, that's what Obama's saying internally, right?
First of all, I don't believe whether you agree with me or disagree with me, whether you agree with Donald Trump or disagree with him, I don't believe in hectoring voters. I believe in persuading voters. Your support is not something I'm given or something I'm owed. It's something you got to go out there and work for. So one, I just don't like the tone of going in. I mean, look, the better question for Barack Obama or anybody to ask is not why black men. It's not how dare you not vote for Kamala Harris. It's maybe they're thinking about voting for Donald Trump because they're sick of being censored. They're sick.
The illusion of Obama's greatness has always been built on presentation, not performance. Patrick Bet-David wastes no time peeling back that glossy veneer, pointing out that the so-called visionary spent 8 years running the country like a TED Talk, long on words, short on delivery. The man could captivate a room with polished speeches, but the fine print of his record tells a different story. Wars dragged on, the middle class kept shrinking, and the political divisions he promised to heal only deepened into permanent fractures. It's the classic bait-and-switch of modern politics. Sell hope, deliver bureaucracy, and then hide behind eloquence when the results never materialize.
Go back to it. You can do that. We don't have to agree politically. I still want to find a way for us to be able to hear each other out and disagree on policies, and I want to see them be together. I don't root for them to not make it. You want to see them make it. However, body language, these guys haven't been living together for a long time. I mean, when he's going and having breakfast with his girls and the wife is not there and he's going to funerals and traditional presidential, things that you have to be part of, and she's not there at Jimmy Carter's funeral. Maybe not Trump's, I get it, but Carter's, little.
JD Vance sharpens the blade by going after the self-styled image of Obama as a transformational leader. According to Vance, the only thing transformed under Obama was the Democratic Party into a celebrity fan club, where substance took a backseat to style. He reminds people that the man's biggest achievement wasn't a lasting reform, but a healthcare law so messy became a political punching bag for the next decade. And instead of uniting the country, Obama oversaw an era that lit the fuse for the populist backlash that still defines American politics today. Far from being a savior, he became a catalyst for the chaos that followed.
The only thing the far left really responds to is power. The thing that they're actually going to be responsive to is the recognition that there are consequences on the other side. If they get off scot-free, if they're never investigated, if they're never prosecuted when they violated the law, then they're just going to come back and do the exact same thing again. And there are a few different ways, of course. So it's the big tech companies that were censoring conservatives. They've got to know that's not going to be allowed.
And here Bet-David digs deeper into Obama's obsession with legacy, exposing how much of his presidency was driven by the fear of being forgotten. Every move seemed calculated not to solve problems, but to build a monument to himself. From carefully staged photographs to choreographed interviews, the presidency often looked more like a Netflix production than an administration. The irony is that in trying so hard to script his greatness, Obama ended up revealing how shallow it really was. For all the magazine covers and best-selling books, the actual scoreboard progress is shockingly thin.
She sounds like the way MAGA feels with Trump when he talks about Epstein. How upset they are at Trump about Epstein. The Democrats are upset at Obama because they're saying you're doing this. They're putting the responsibility on him, right? On the messaging here. Adam, your thoughts on this when you see, what Whoopi, Obama...
Vance piles on by reminding everyone that Obama's foreign policy blunders weren't just missteps, but disasters. From the red line fiasco in Syria to the bungled handling of Libya, Obama perfected the art of leading from behind, an approach that left allies confused and adversaries emboldened. The global stage quickly realized that behind the soaring rhetoric was a man more interested in preserving his brand than projecting strength. And the price of that weakness is still being paid today in a more unstable world.
For 4 years, under Joe Biden's Department of Justice, the media didn't give a damn about the Epstein files or about the Epstein case. For literally 20 years, the story about this scumbag, and he is a scumbag pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, he's dead now, but for 20 years, you had Obama and George W. Bush's Department of Justice go easy on this guy. They didn't fully investigate the case.
Patrick Bet-David hammers home the cultural side of Obama's reign. While he was celebrated as a cool, modern president, the Spotify playlist, the celebrity appearances, the late-night comedy skits, what got lost was a reality that ordinary Americans were left behind. The cool factor may have made him a star, but it didn't make him effective. Bet-David emphasizes that the presidency isn't a fashion show. It's a job with results. And by that metric, Obama looks far less like the legend his fans want him to be, and far more like an empty suit with great marketing. JD Vance takes the opportunity to highlight how Obama's elitism poisoned his politics. For all the talk of empathy, his presidency always felt like a performance stage for an audience that could afford to applaud.
Visually, he's changed. I like to say visually as opposed to from the look standpoint, because, of course, looks don't matter anymore in politics. Looks don't matter. It doesn't make any difference, right? Because we want to be politically correct, but they do matter. But he's changed. His look has changed, actually, quite a bit. I haven't seen him in a long time.
And by the way, Rob, I think that's even 4 years ago. I think it's even more than it is
Well,
today.
no, but the statement he just made was a couple of days ago. And
it was a couple of days ago. And it's similar to the statement he made back in 2012 when he told business owners, you didn't build that. Remember when he said that? I don't know if you remember that whole comment. I think this is the speech, Rob, if you want to play this.
You got a business. You didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
This becomes a pattern.
Bet-David refuses to let Obama off the hook on economics either. He dismantles the myth of Obama as a stew of recovery, pointing out that the so-called economic comeback under his watch was one of the weakest in modern history. The middle class remained stagnant, job growth crawled, and debt ballooned. The supposed genius of Obama's economic policies looks less like brilliance and more like luck paired with endless money printing. And while the press worked overtime to spin it as a triumph, the people living paycheck to paycheck weren't buying the story. JD Vance closes in on the theme of hypocrisy, showing how Obama built a career condemning the politics of division while quietly thriving on it. And the punchline is that for all his calls to move past partisanship, Obama left the country more bitterly divided than ever.
I saw the recent movie Leave the World Behind. Anybody saw that movie there? Oh, okay, yeah, all these... Am I watching a movie or is this a documentary realistic thing? And then I'm seeing Mark Zuckerberg just spent $100 million building a house in Hawaii with a nuclear bunker. What does he know that the rest of the world doesn't know about? Talk about the timing. Oh, accidentally, coincidentally, a week after that movie comes out, a new movie comes out. What's the name of that movie? Civil War. Leave the world behind. Our power grid in America hasn't been updated. 75% of it hasn't been updated in 50 years. And you're kind of talking about that. Then you're pitting whites against blacks. There's a line in the movie that says, Dad, if something goes down, we can't trust these white people. I know that's something both you and Mom agree on. Why do you put that line in the movie, Barack? And you were...
Patrick Bet-David strips away the carefully manufactured image and exposes the core truth. Obama was less a president and more a performer. His strength was never in leading, but in selling. Selling hope, selling change, selling himself. But once the cameras turned off and applause faded, the emptiness of that sales pitch became impossible to ignore. His presidency was a masterclass in branding, not in results. And that's why his legacy, despite all the fanfare, feels more like a mirage than a monument.
The Obama office responds to Trump's accusation of treason outrageous. Let me read this to you, and Thomas Ellsworth, I'm coming to you first, so please be prepared with all your notes.
Ready.
Obama's office spokesperson, Patrick Rodenbush, great first name, rejected the office of the Director of National Intelligence. Reports claim that senior Obama administration officials orchestrated the Russia collusion hoax, stating, out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White.
The destruction here isn't just about tearing down a political figure. It's about puncturing a myth that's been sold for too long. Obama wanted to be remembered as the man who redefined history. But when the smoke clears and the lights dim, he looks more like the politician who perfected the R presentation while fumbling the reality of leadership. And thanks to Bet-David and Vance, that reality isn't just exposed, it's eviscerated. Barack Obama was sold as a political revolution in a suit, the cool intellectual who would reset America and usher in a golden era. Instead, his presidency became a masterclass in branding over substance. A Netflix trailer stretched into 8 years of hype. Patrick Bet-David and JD Vance ripped through the glossy packaging and find exactly what critics had long suspected. The promise of bipartisan healing was replaced with entrenched division. The hope of economic renewal gave way to sluggish recovery, and the expectation of accountability drowned in a sea of excuses.
One thing I wanted to show is the following. So you know how you talked about Jerome Powell, what an easy job. You come once a month and he said we're going to increase the rates.
Greatest job there is.
I think this is the one thing they don't talk about. So Barack Obama got elected November 4th. Okay, quantitative easing started November 26th.
Right.
And it stayed for 8 years until you got elected.
Right.
So if you look at that low, pretty much 0% interest rate.
Right.
And then you get elected, right? If you go to January 2016, Rob, for the audience to see that. And then from there, one by one, rates are going up. And then Biden comes in, goes back down to 0 to try to save the economy. And then, you know, the rest is obviously history.
Right.
But do you think the average person knows, like, the impact of going to 0%? How much does that positively help the impact?
Obama's strength was always in presentation. Yet even that charm wore thin as voters realized they were watching the same script repeated endlessly. A theater of inspiration that could not mask the stagnation underneath. Bet-David tears into the illusion from another angle, exposing how Obama's detachment turned him into more of a commentator than a commander. He wasn't the leader in the trenches fighting for progress. He was a man in the balcony narrating how tough things looked below. When the country demanded bold moves, Obama delivered cautious half-steps. Healthcare reform, his supposed crown jewel, became an endless bureaucratic maze where premiums soared and promises evaporated. Instead of liberation, families face higher costs and fewer options, all under the banner of historic achievement. The foreign policy chapter reads no better. Obama presented himself as a global peacemaker, but the results betrayed the brand.
I'm going to go to the next topic here, which is Adam's top topic, talking about Obama saying every man needs a gay friend. So Obama goes
Barack,
on his wife's podcast, okay? And they're sitting there having this conversation, and it opens. They covered a lot of different things. Right off the bat, they talked about the divorce. Hey, aren't we supposed to be getting a divorce and all this stuff? Just tell me if this seems like they woke up together in the same bed this morning, the last week.
Libya collapsed into chaos after his intervention. Syria became a humanitarian nightmare under his watch, and the infamous red line evaporated into diplomatic fog. His administration managed the extraordinary feat of appearing decisive in rhetoric while remaining paralyzed in action. Patrick Bet-David highlights how this approach wasn't caution. It was paralysis dressed up as wisdom. JD Vance dives deeper into the hypocrisy of Obama's legacy. The man who promised to lift working-class communities instead catered to elite cultural circles, reserving his true passion for media appearances, celebrity endorsements, and academic adoration. Rather than using his platform to champion the working poor or tackle the crises he left unresolved, Obama slid effortlessly into the role of cultural celebrity.
The last point I want to make is, I got to say, and shocker, newsflash here, I've defended Kamala Harris once, I'm about to defend Barack Obama once. So set to the side the hectoring and the tone of Obama when he went in and talking about black voters, like whatever. Obviously, I just criticized that. You know what I was watching him talk? You know what I thought to myself is, agree or disagree, and obviously I disagreed with about 99% of what he did when he was in office. He had substance, and Kamala Harris.
Netflix deals, memoir tours, and carefully staged public appearances became a hallmark of a man more invested in curating a brand than leading a movement. The irony is brutal. The president who warned against celebrity politics became its ultimate practitioner, profiting from the very stagecraft he once denounced. JD Vance mocks the contrast between Obama's promises and outcomes. He pledged transparency, but delivered scandals like the IRS targeting controversy and the endless stonewalling over Benghazi. He pledged unity, but left the political climate more polarized than ever, paving the way for the very populist backlash he claimed to resist. Far from being the antidote to division, Obama was its accelerant, soothing audiences with words while igniting deeper distrust beneath the surface. Patrick Bet-David zeroes in on the emptiness of Obama's economic rhetoric. He championed fairness while presiding over a Wall Street recovery that left ordinary workers behind.
The banks, the president is really preoccupied with this, and rightfully so. And of course, you've got to pay the lawfare back in kind. You've got to say to the Comeys and the Brennans of the world, of course, you got to follow the law. You can only prosecute people when they actually broke the law. But we know that a lot of people broke the law in the last administration, and they've got to face real justice, not just words, not just getting hauled before a committee in Capitol Hill. If people broke the law.
The banks were saved, the elites prospered, and the stock market boomed. But the average household saw stagnation. Hope and change never trickled down to the kitchen table. What filtered through was a widening gap between the America Obama glamorized in speeches and the America that lived paycheck to paycheck. J.D. Vance pulls no punches in mocking Obama's obsession with legacy. The former president seemed less concerned with the real-world consequences of his decisions and more obsessed with how history books would phrase them. But history doesn't lie. A decade later, Obamacare remains polarizing. Foreign crises fueled distrust, and the promise of unity dissolved into deeper fractures. The myth of Obama, the transformative leader, survives only in the curated narratives of academia and media elites who confuse eloquence with effectiveness. Patrick Bet-David dismantles that illusion by underscoring how Obama's success was always a matter of perception, not results. And in the end, Patrick Bet-David and JD Vance don't just strip away the polish. They expose the hollow core of a presidency that mistook applause for achievement, leaving behind not transformation but frustration.